Assalamu alaikum. And let me ask you something. Have you ever said no to someone politely and still felt like you were the one in the wrong? Like you did everything right, but somehow it still didn't sit right? Because today's story is about a simple moment, a normal situation, but the reaction that followed makes you question how people really see boundaries. This was my first time going to a cosplay convention. I was excited. I had spent a lot of time putting my outfit together, making sure every detail looked right. When I got there, the atmosphere was amazing. People were dressed as all kinds of characters, and everyone seemed to appreciate the effort each person had put in. Throughout the day, people noticed my costume. I got a lot of compliments. Some people took pictures without asking, which is pretty common in that kind of environment. Others were more respectful and came up to me asking if they could take a photo. Whenever someone asked nicely, I said yes. I smiled, posed, and tried to be as friendly as possible. I wanted to enjoy the experience and also be part of what makes these events fun for everyone. But after hours of walking, standing, posing, and interacting with people, I started to feel exhausted. It wasn't just physical, it was mental too. You reach a point where your energy is just gone, and all you want to do is go home. So I decided it was time to leave. I headed toward the parking garage and started taking off parts of my costume. The crown came off first, then the gloves. I was holding pieces of the outfit in my arms, no longer fully dressed as the character. At that point, I was just trying to pack up and get home. That's when a man and his wife approached me. He looked at me and asked, "Can I take a picture of you?" Not with me, just of me. I paused for a moment because I felt uncomfortable. I wasn't fully in costume anymore, and I was clearly in the middle of taking it off. I was tired, and it just didn't feel like the right moment. So I answered politely. I said, "I'm sorry, sir. This isn't the best time for me." My boyfriend who was with me added that I had already started taking off my costume, which was obvious since I was literally holding parts of it. Right after that, the man's reaction changed. He mumbled something under his breath. I couldn't clearly hear what he said, but his tone was annoyed. He stomped slightly and walked away. But what really stayed with me was his wife. Before leaving, she turned and gave us a very unpleasant look. It wasn't just disappointment, it felt like judgment. And that moment made me stop and think. Did I do something wrong? Because the entire day I had been saying yes. I had been kind, respectful, and open. And the one time I said no, it turned into something uncomfortable. My boyfriend noticed I went quiet. He asked me how I felt about what just happened. And honestly, I wasn't sure. Part of me felt like I had done the right thing. I had been polite, I had apologized, and I had given an honest answer. But another part of me felt guilty. And that feeling is what made me really think about the situation. Why do we feel guilty for saying no? I didn't ignore him. I didn't respond with attitude. I didn't make him feel disrespected. I simply set a boundary at a moment when I felt uncomfortable. And still, it felt like I had done something wrong. But when you really think about it, no one is entitled to your time, your attention, or your image. Not even in a public space. Not even at an event where photos are common. And not even if you've said yes to others before. Every moment is different. Every situation is different. And consent is something you give each time, not something people can expect from you just because you agreed before. In that moment, I had already started taking off my costume. I was no longer presenting the character I had worked so hard to create. I was tired, and I was ready to leave. Saying no in that situation felt reasonable. And yet, the reaction I received made it feel like I had broken some kind of unspoken rule. But the truth is, there is no rule that says you have to say yes every time. If someone is clearly tired, clearly in the middle of leaving, and clearly not in a position to take a photo, expecting a yes doesn't make sense. And reacting negatively to a polite no says more about the other person than it does about you. A respectful response would have been simple. Something like, "No problem, have a good night." That's it. No frustration, no judgment, no unnecessary reaction. Just respect. Looking back, I don't believe I did anything wrong. I respected myself in that moment. I listened to how I felt, and I responded honestly. And sometimes, that means someone else won't be happy. But that doesn't make your decision wrong. You're allowed to have limits. You're allowed to decide what you're comfortable with. And you're allowed to say no, even if it's the only time you say it. Because at the end of the day, your boundaries are yours. And respecting them is not something you should ever feel guilty about.